What kind of crow is that, rooster? Hey chickens, good morning. There's water starting to thaw out. A little icy. It'll thaw out here in a little bit. So I have these chickens up here preparing this garden space, and I love this setup so much. This is Justin Rhodes' Chickshaw design. He has free plans for that we followed, and Maya tweaked it a little bit, and we added one of the automatic doors that we like to use, and then we're using this movable fencing from Gallagher on a solar panel, and this has been so nice. I'm going to be moving them out of this particular area pretty soon so it can rest, and we'll mulch it so we can plant it here in a few months. Chicken manure is called hot manure, which means it's just really high in nitrogen, and it can burn your plants if you have it directly on them. Now it's February, they're in here. I probably won't plant out here for a couple of months. You typically want to age chicken manure a little longer than that, but because this is all spread out over here, I'm not piling up like mounds of uncomposted chicken manure on top of plants. It's all spread out and scratched in. I'm really not worried about it. Now, I'm not gonna plant anything like root vegetables or lettuces or anything like that I'm gonna be eating directly out of the ground because this manure is hot. That's not necessarily like a hard and fast rule. It's just something that I like to do if I know I haven't aged manure long enough. So we're gonna be rearranging the fence soon. I'm not 100% sure where we're gonna put them next, but I am deciding that we're actually gonna move the rest of the chickens from that coop in with these because this coop can hold that many. We've been having some really crazy predator issues, and I have not figured out what the problem is yet. I had that goose just straight up disappear, and then since then I've noticed that my chicken numbers were dwindling, and I definitely don't like predators getting my animals, so I'm gonna move them. I'm gonna move them where they will be safer, and I also think I'll get more eggs from them in that chickshaw. And I don't know exactly what it is, but our coop is like kind of downhill over here. It's behind a big tree. It doesn't have a lot of windows, and I think it's just dark in there. Even though we put like a little bit of supplemental light, those chickens just stop laying sooner and start laying later. This chickshaw of chickens has already started laying again. And so I'm just gonna move them all up here and keep them all together. We're gonna clean out that coop really good and just let it rest. And then when we get our spring chicks and we raise them up and move them out of the brooder, we'll just put them straight into that coop, and we won't have to worry about merging the flocks or anything. We'll just have the two separate flocks. So I showed you guys Maggie is in labor, which is really exciting. She has been leading me on with that since yesterday, and I'm really excited that she's finally really moving along. It should be pretty close, but I had already started to shoot a video yesterday, and I have this really awesome long vlog, and I'm gonna put her having babies as a conclusion to that. And because she is so close, I don't want to go get into anything that I cannot quickly stop to go check on her and be with her. I'm giving her a little space because I don't want to be adding stress to the situation, but I also want to be close by in case I need to be. So I'm going to clean out the greenhouse. Come on. There's a bunch of mushy peppers on these plants. They're no good for eating for us, but the chickens can come eat them. Round two. Hey guys, it's the next day. Yesterday I was shooting that vlog and cleaning the high tunnel out while periodically checking on Maggie to, you know, keep an eye on her and not miss her labor. And of course she went into labor and had two beautiful doelings, as you saw in the last vlog. And we'll go take a look at them really quick before we go back out. I do need to work in the high tunnel. So we had to do like a quick little adjustment to our barn area. Bear, you better leave those babies alone. Their mamas are gonna get you. Hey, beautiful. How you feeling today? Oh, there's your pretty girls. One of them on this side looks so much like Maggie, except for with tinier ears. So here are Clover's babies. We just did a little adjustment here in closing this so we could put a heat light up so that these little ones could have a warm place, because these goats are tiny. You can see her little sweater I made her is unraveling her. It's probably about time to take that off. They're so little though. They're definitely looking sturdier. It's a warmer day today. For those that may have missed our goat drama, we bred 5 does at the same time because we thought we were gonna have our new barn up. It was supposed to be here a few months ago. We bought like a metal barn and we were gonna outfit it with stalls. And because of COVID, the barn got delayed. And so it didn't get here in time. And so we just had our old existing barn, which only had 2 stalls. And our goats just all started kidding at the same time. So we had to improvise here. We did close this in a little bit more for a warmer place for these babies. Everything's been fine so far. It doesn't get ridiculously cold here in Arkansas, but our nights have been, you know, around 25 or so the last like few nights, which is cold. And when you have a little teeny tiny goat like this little girl is just minuscule. She's already now quite a few days old, and just she probably only weighs about 3 pounds. So you definitely need to be able to keep the little ones warm and dry. So we've improvised, and I don't know, I'm not mad. I had 5 doelings out of 6 kids. Never had that happen before, ever. We've never had so many doelings. Even when we had 15 kids, we've never gotten 5 doelings in 1 year. So even though we gave the old barn, this whole barn is made from repurposed materials. This is the privacy fence that was falling down around our property when we bought it. It was an old foreclosure. These are used 4x4s. This is used 10. The whole thing is completely repurposed. And it has served its purpose well, and thanks to a shipping delay, it got one last big hurrah this year. Now we're waiting on Anna here. She should be pretty close, and Winona is still out in the yard. She does not seem to have been bred at the same time as them. I don't think she's gonna kid until later. I'm actually going out of town in the morning, and I would be extremely surprised if Anna was still pregnant when I got home, so I'm probably gonna miss her birth. We moved our remaining hens from our other coop over here yesterday, like I mentioned in the first part of this vlog. A few of them have figured out how to get out, so they're running around. We'll have to catch them. All right, let's turn this off. All right, she took off. I'm not gonna chase her right now. I'm gonna wait till I have somebody else here to help me pin her. Bear sometimes helps me, don't you, Bear? Bear's actually a really big help whenever I'm trying to catch a chicken or a goat, because he'll you know, block off the area that they're trying to go to get away from me. I like him helping better with goats because he'll hold them down and he won't hurt them. But chickens, he's a big dog. Bear weighs 90 pounds. Even when he's holding down a chicken, he could unintentionally hurt them. So these 2 guys, Hank and Garth, are over here and they're being weaned from mama. They are finally old enough to be away from their moms. And I really hate this because they cry when you take them away from their moms. But if I leave them in with their moms, geese want to talk right now. If I leave them in with their moms, they'll get them pregnant. So pretty much crying it is for them. Because, you know, I don't need inbred baby goats. Their moms don't need to be bred that soon. It's time. Hey, Bear, do you want to come in? Coming? Are you coming? All right, good boy. I'm back out here to clean out the high tunnel and get ready for what we're gonna put out here next. I got the peppers pulled out yesterday. Right now my focus is just pulling out the stuff that's spent. And then we will bring some more compost in here, lay a layer of new compost down on top of these beds, and get ready to replant them. I'll show you guys a few interesting little garden things. Here is the pineapple sage that I planted out here, which I knew could be kind of aggressive and spread, but I just wanted it in here. I have a lot of planting space. Sometimes I give way to things that aren't necessarily the most effective, but they bring me joy, and this is one of them. Now that plant obviously looked very dead. It obviously was not. So this is the new growth coming up. Will this live until spring? I don't know. If it gets really cold out here over the next month, and it could, this will die back again because it's not hardy. Now here is a cabbage that I left out here too long. My Benjamin's birthday is in a month, and his requested birthday dinner was sausage links from our pigs, fried cabbage from our greenhouse, and kale chips from our greenhouse, which is very sweet. It's an interesting meal choice, but you know, I'm okay with supporting that. But I was trying really hard to make these cabbages last. I have a few more down here that are smaller and they're more shady, but I think I probably need to go ahead and pick them. I wanted to be able to pick them fresh and cook them for him, but I don't think it's gonna happen. Now, I might be able to freeze some of them, but I'm not 100% sure that fried cabbage from frozen cabbage would turn out really well. I don't know, maybe somebody throw some suggestions at me. If I have to go buy cabbage at the farmer's market, he'll be okay. That will be okay. I'm just not willing to let them sit out here and split and ruin because I'm trying to save them for something. And interestingly, down here, like where I had just cut the cabbages off and left the stems in the ground, they're trying to sprout. Now, sometimes I pull plants up, like you saw me pull those pepper plants up at the beginning of this video. And sometimes I'll leave the roots in the ground because this is organic matter. And when this breaks down in the ground, it's just adding nutrients back to the soil. But I am gonna go ahead and pull these up because these are really hard stumps. And when it comes to amending and replanting this, those might just be in the way. Now, I could have been a little more effective, I think, with my high tunnel over this winter. And maybe succession sowing, like for instance, not having all of these cabbages in at the same time where they came to maturity within the same couple of weeks. And maybe by having spread some things out, I could have kept things at the optimum freshness and ripeness throughout the winter. But truly, I am very pleased with how my first winter with this high tunnel went. I'll know better in the future with doing stuff like this. Now what I'm dealing with is like a lot of my root vegetables are getting really big. We've eaten so much food out of here. It's hard to really convey it on the camera because it just looks really big. It just looks really thickly sown. You can't always see how much has been harvested, but we've eaten so much food out of here. Lots of fresh eating. And now I think I'm going to start taking some of these like turnips and rutabagas, which are really getting like a lot of powdery mildew and stuff like that. And I'm going to maybe do some fermenting and pickling with them. We do have a freeze dryer, and I was thinking with the rutabagas, which I have so many of, going ahead and boiling and mashing those and then freeze drying them where they could just be reconstituted and have like sour cream, go baby, sour cream and chives and stuff added to them. I think that would be really cool. I was talking to Maya about it last night. How can we preserve what's left out here? A split cabbage makes for happy pigs. Y'all want some? I'm gonna have to get them some more treats. That just wasn't fair enough. There were some things too, like for instance, this dino kale. I mean, even though I've harvested a lot of it, I mean, there was so much to begin with. I mean, you can see like the bottoms of these stalks and they're all harvested all the like a foot to 18 inches up, but there's just a lot. Y'all check out some of these remaining turnips. They're massive. They're so good. Here's a rutabaga. Is just take all these outer leaves off that are getting powdery mildew. That's from lack of air circulation, which is also on me. We never set our fans up out here. We weren't that worried about it. It is obviously cause damage over the course of 5 months to all these turnips and rutabagas. But again, I'm looking at our first year growing through the winter in the high tunnel going, that's pretty good. The thing is with the fans is we needed to run an electrical line out here, and it just never was high enough on the priority list for us to do that over the other things that had to be done. And even now I stand by that decision. I don't feel like, I'm not really desperately wishing I had done anything different. I feel really good about the amount of food we got out of here. And I'm feeling just that impending shift of seasons where you come to the end, you assess what you could have done better, what you'll do differently next time, and then you just move on. You know, like you can't just constantly be like, oh, I was so bad at this. I honestly think that's what happens for a lot of people when it comes to gardening, is they come to the end of a gardening season and they look at all the mistakes or the areas where they ruined a harvest, where they killed seedlings, where they missed the hornworms were chewing on their tomato plants and they ate up all their plants and ruined half their fruit, or they didn't do something right with their watering and they end up with blossom end rot, or whatever it is. And you get to the end and you're like, I have a black thumb, I'm a bad gardener. And it's like, I mean, right now I'm standing in a high tunnel with, you know, a lot of food that will inevitably end up getting fed to the pigs, things that could have done better and could have been more productive, split cabbages and stuff that just ended up going that way. I'm not a bad gardener. I mean, I didn't do great on those things, but I'm not a bad gardener. Just, you know, I'll do it different next time. I saw where Charles Dowding was harvesting some rutabagas, and he had cut back a lot of the excess greens. And the thing I've really noticed, and I'm sure he really deals with this being in such a wet climate, but the thing I've really noticed is that rutabagas have a really strong tendency to get blossom or powdery mildew. Rutabagas are called Swedes outside of the United States, or cabbage turnips, so you might know them by that. And while this powdery mildew was definitely like exacerbated by our lack of airflow in this closed up high tunnel, even when I grew them out in my garden in the open air, they also got powdery mildew a little bit out there. So I noticed Charles Dowding was cutting back a lot of the excess greens, and I don't know, I might have missed it if he was harvesting those like to eat the greens, but either way, I thought that's really smart. And in the future, I'll stay on top of that because that'll provide airflow that they need. They ran after those like they were just greens. I didn't realize there was heavy roots in them. Watching pigs eat root vegetables is just so gratifying to me. I'm like, God, I hope they never decide to bite my leg with those strong jaws. They just crunch into these things. This mess right here is because I harvested these Brussels sprouts in the dark the other night. So there's leaves laying all over the place from me. I am truly a very messy gardener. On our farm, I'm the gardener. I'm the person who calls the gardening shots and makes the decisions and decides what's going where and all that stuff. And I'm also the one that's out here typically harvesting. And so you'll see a lot of messes, like crud in the walkways, stuff left in the beds, because I am so messy. I really am. I'm not proud. It's just true. And Jeremiah, he's not the gardener. Jeremiah takes care of the animals and like the building stuff, and he'll like help me with stuff when I ask him, but this is not his space. This is my space, and it is representative, truly. If Jeremiah ever gets involved in the gardening, forget about it. Like, I'm going to have a rude awakening because he is so like orderly and he likes things just so, and like you can't leave messes like this in Jeremiah's spaces, like his shop. And like when he's doing things, like everything needs to be put back where it goes. Everything needs to be tidied up when it's done. And so like I think about that sometimes. I'm like, you know, it's only a matter of time. At some point, he's going to take a hand in this. At some point, the ineffectiveness of how I do things and the mess is gonna bother him enough to get involved and like bring some sort of trellis to this organic growth. And I'm trying to now emotionally prepare myself for that hypothetical day, because I don't know. I just don't know. Like, look at this. Look at these walkways. So bad. Look at this. I'm actually not trying to pull all these turnips out today. I was just bringing some over to the pigs because I know I have a lot of them. Thought I had a knife in my pocket. Okay. This is gross. What I'm about to do is gonna gross some of you guys out, but I'm prepared to stand by it. All right, I did wipe it off. I'm not a pig. Okay, I just want to know what it tastes like when they're this big. I'm gonna get that. I can't even take myself seriously right now. I think turnips are so cool because they can get this big and they still taste good. What a great way to grow food. This turnip probably weighs about 2 pounds, you know, once I get all the leaves off and stuff. Maybe like, yeah, 2 pounds. I would say this weighs 2 pounds. Like, this is so much food. I mean, I probably have right now in the high tunnel 100+ pounds, probably 200 pounds of like turnips and rutabagas. That's crazy. And I'm not picking them all right now because I am going out of town this weekend, and they're obviously not, it's not gonna make a big difference between now and the beginning of next week. And I can start trying to preserve some of them then. But that's nuts. I mean, I'm gonna feed this to the pigs, which is still growing food, and it still tastes good. I mean, even the outside, the skin, like by the skin is like the spiciest part, and like the inside will get really sweet. But it starts to get just sliced, get a little bite to it on the outside. And it's still super sweet and super good because it grew in the cold. So impressive. There you go. Let's watch them crunch this up. I want to see you bite the root. They're like, mushy, mildewy leaves, yum. Get it, girl? Well, she said, that's my turnip. What a space of glorious potential. Every time I walk in here, I just feel so moved by it. Okay, I'm back up in the front garden now, and I wanted to show you guys all the onions that Benjamin and I planted the other day. When you use these slips, or some people call them sets, technically I think sets are like the little bulbs you get, and these are called slips, but anyway, started onions. They come and you put them in, and this is exactly how mine looked last year. They looked kind of rough there for a little bit, but eventually they'll start standing back up. They're just fresh soil, and it's cold, and they're just adjusting. But this is like 400 onions right here, which is quite a lot, really. These beds are 48 foot long, and this represents about 2/3 of it. They're just slightly close together, but they'll be okay. We might could have gotten them bigger if we put them a little further apart, but last year, I don't know, I think that they weren't really much further apart than that last year, and we harvested a lot of nice size onions. Okay, time to go in. Bear, look at your muddy paws, boy. Okay, you staying out? All right. Now, one of the things that I wanted to do, because I know it's going to be gone, is come in here and make sure that these plants had water. Check out that root. So this is why I love bottom watering. Y'all see that root hanging down? That is from this tiny little plant. That's very good. These are slightly leggy. I don't have any lights or heat on these, and so I'm actually going to move these up to the top shelf and then get a little more light. I've been asked a few times recently if I use heat or lights in my greenhouse. I've done this all kinds of ways. Keep in mind, this glass greenhouse is a beast. It holds heat better than anything else I've ever tried to grow in outside. But I have started seeds in an unheated, unlit, Harbor Freight, plastic sided and topped greenhouse that had no additional heat. That's how I did it for a few years before I had this one, and it works. What I would suggest you do if you were trying to start seeds in an outdoor space that you're not regulating the temperature of is I would get, they make these things, I think you can get them on Amazon. I actually don't have one because I'm just a glutton for punishment, so I just make myself come out here all hours of the night. But they make like a high-low thermometer where you can put it out here and it's digital, and it'll record what the lows were and what the highs were. And it really would have been handy back when I was using that plastic greenhouse, because I ended up kind of learning by trial and error how cold was too cold outside to expect the inside of that greenhouse to stay heated. And that greenhouse could maybe overnight hold about 10 Fahrenheit degrees above what the outside temperature was if it had been a sunny day. And if it had been an overcast day, it was going to be the same for the most part in the greenhouse as it was outside. Whereas this greenhouse holds like 20 to 30 Fahrenheit degrees above what it is outside. So, I mean, it's just a pretty massive difference. And so I would implore you, if you are trying to figure out for whatever greenhouse you are using. I know people have the little plastic ones on their back porch. People have the Harbor Freight ones. People have ones that they made stretching plastic over cattle panels or PVC. You might have built something out of glass. You've got to keep in mind, like, the sun in some places is putting off a lot more UV rating than in other places. And there are so many factors. That is not something that you need to learn by Google or by asking somebody else. It's just not. There is too much room for error, and you're the one who's going to pay the price if you try to get advice from somebody on, should I leave my tomato starts in my unheated greenhouse overnight? I mean, like, they can say, oh, I do, and it's fine. And then if you do and your tomato starts die, that stinks for you, not them. So I would really encourage you to really play around, maybe get one of those thermometers. For me, I keep a thermometer out here and it doesn't record highs and lows. But now I'm very comfortable with it. Now I understand what this greenhouse is going to do. But when I first got it, I would come out here before I went to bed every night, about 10:30. And then I would come out here again when I woke up in the morning. And sometimes that's like 5:30, and just see what was the difference between 10:30 at night, 5:30 in the morning. And I would do it after 3 overcast days in a row, after a really rainy day, after a cold day, after a sunny day. And I just did it so many times that I learned what to expect. And then I started playing with turning a heater on and just figuring out what I can really expect from this space. Even knowing this greenhouse really well, if I had a bunch of frost tender seedlings in here and was running my little heater, and I knew we were going to have an overcast day with a lot of winter precipitation, or a few in a row, and then we were going to have freezing temperatures that were significantly below freezing. And for us, when I say significantly below freezing, the coldest it ever gets here is 0 Fahrenheit, which is negative 17 Celsius. Even though, like, if I knew it was going to be getting that cold, like down into our single digit nights, you better believe I'd be hauling every single plant out of this greenhouse up into my house, because there reaches a point for me when I have invested a certain amount of work in the plants, and I know, well, at this point, it's not just a matter of, oh, I'll just resow them. Like, sometimes once it gets 6 weeks into seed starting, 8 weeks into seed starting, and we're getting really close to the frosts going away, we will have another cold snap. And sometimes those plants I have represent really rare seeds that people sent me. I mean, it represents a lot of work being put in, a lot of babying, a lot of energy, running a heater out here and running a fan out here. And it's just, I'm not willing to take risks with that. And that's just something, again, that you're going to have to personally decide on. And really, you need to have all of the information that applies to your situation, be able to make an educated decision on that. Being that we're really coming up on seed starting season for most people, I mean, I know a lot of you, even in northern climates, you might be a couple months out from actually starting your frost tender seeds, but you're probably in the mind of getting prepared for that, buying stuff and just getting things in a row. During this time of year, I get a lot of people sending me messages. You make this look easy, but it's actually really hard, and you should tell people that it's actually really hard. And I'm not going to do that. Like, there is a learning curve. You're not going to come in here and accidentally have fantastic success and avoid all failures, you know, with zero effort or intention. That's not true. I mean, it's not one of those things that you can be neglectful and forgetful and lackadaisical and have fantastic success with. You could be neglectful, forgetful, and lackadaisical and have some success with it. I mean, you can have accidental successes in the garden, because this stuff wants to grow. I mean, it's designed to want to grow. But I think having an honest approach to growing stuff, and just being really frank with yourself. Like, right now, I'm sitting here looking at my Chinese pink celery that I started the other day and realizing that when I was out here opening my onions, I laid a pamphlet on top of my little seed starting tray, and being lackadaisical, neglectful, and unintentional, I left it there, and several of those sprouted underneath this, and then they shriveled up because they didn't have any light. that was dumb. So I screwed up. I needed to pay better attention to where I was setting my stuff. I needed to remember my celery. I've got time to resow them. I'm not a bad seed starter. There are failures involved in this, especially if you are lackadaisical and neglectful and unintentional. But I mean, that doesn't make seed starting hard. Like, the fact that those seedlings germinated underneath a piece of paper and they didn't have light, and so they died, that doesn't make seed starting hard. If you started your stuff and you didn't pay attention to how cold your greenhouse was getting, or you started them in your house on a north-facing window and they got really, really leggy till they just fell over and died, or you started them and then you didn't water them and so they dried up, that doesn't make seed starting hard. Learn and be like, okay, well, don't do that, and next time, maybe I'll have more success. It doesn't make seed starting. There is a lot of room for error. I mean, there's a lot of room where, like, that piece of paper probably killed those seedlings in 2 days. You know, I mean, it's not been like that for a really long time. So there is definitely, like, margin for error here. But I mean, truly, like, is it hard because you can kill it easily? Like, I don't view it that way. I think that anybody can start seeds if they are willing to put a measure of commitment to it. And you sound like raising a kid, you know, like there are much harder things that require much more commitment, that require just so much more of us than seed starting. I would suggest, if you have failed in seed starting in the past, and we all have, I mean, if you've been doing this for very long, you've had failures. It's just how it is. Some people less than others. I think I probably have more failures than most people because I'm truly very spacey. And like 13 years into gardening, I'm still doing dumb stuff like that. Like, I'm not a bad gardener. I just do dumb stuff sometimes. And it's not that it's too hard. I just need to be more aware of what I'm doing. Now, I know that sounds kind of ranty, and I don't mean it that way. I understand that it's very frustrating whenever you're trying to learn a new thing. Whenever you make a mistake, it can be very disappointing. Whenever you've spent money on something and then you have to start over, that's true. So some things that you can do, and this is super like elementary practicality, like time management type stuff, but lists and alarms and reminders are your friend when it comes to things like this, because the margin for error is small. And so having a list of things you need to do and making sure that you check it off at the end of every day, because if you're new to this, it's very easy to forget that stuff. It's crazy how I'm so excited about starting seeds that I'm like checking them every day, but then I can still space out and get busy on other things and accidentally kill them. I love them. I love the garden. I mean, it's my job. Like, I have no excuse whatsoever, but I still do this stuff, and I always have in gardening. A lot of times I was taking care of little kids. I was trying to do other things. Life happens. Doesn't make you a bad gardener. It doesn't make this too hard to do. Just assess what it is that you were doing. Put some insurance against yourself in place so that you can have more success next time and you won't fall prey to the same traps and the same mistakes that made it feel hard in the first place. But it's not too hard for you to do. You can do it. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. God bless you. Until next time.